Good evening. This is the May 2nd, 2022 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. My name is Jason Molina. I am the chairperson of the committee. And to get started, we'll do a roll call to ensure that we have a quorum. So again, this is Jason. Members, when I call your name, please say aye. Rajesh?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Melanie?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Gail?
Aye.
Steve? Not present. Jim?
Aye.
Kathy? Not present. All right, we have a quorum. We may begin. Oh, sorry, I also mentioned that we have a staff member here as well, Rowan McAllister.
Present.
Okay, awesome, we may begin. All right, first order of business is to go over the review and approve the minutes from April 11th, 2022. Are there any questions or comments relative to those meeting minutes? Okay, not hearing any, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the 11th.
So
April?
move. Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Those-
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Sorry. We do have two members on the phone as well, so we'll have to go that way. Apologize for that. Okay, so this is Jason, aye. Rajesh?
Aye.
Deborah?
Aye.
Melanie?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Gail?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay, next order of business, review and update first year timeline. Okay, so we're rapidly closing in at the end of our first year of business on the committee. Besides tonight, we do have one more meeting to go. As I've said in prior meetings, the focus to close out for this year is to ensure that we have the community preservation plan approved. So that's something that we want to get through today and have approved in next meeting, just to make sure we close out and do our duty for the first year. Thereafter, and of course, if we can get there with the applications and the process for the applications for the next meeting, we will. But I think the writing is on the wall there that it's probably going to be another draft in that meeting. Of course, the plan, community preservation plan, is our goal, right? So that will probably carry over into the July meeting. Of course, that's that we can be surprised that we can get there with the first cut, but just laying out there what the timeline looks like. Okay, there's another matter relative to the timeline. I think if anybody minds, I'll just take it out of order, which is the next steps for terms. It pretty much falls in line with timeline. Given that we are in May, we have 1 month to go, one more meeting to go formally. It is important, as I mentioned last meeting, some of you were present, that the members from the respective boards and committees that are representative in this committee, that they go back to their respective committees to either seek to stay on board or to seek interest from any parties in your respective boards and committees to see if who will take up membership into the CPC come July, the first July meeting. So again, the members have 1-year terms. I know, of course, they may be out of sync from you personally on your respective board or committee, but in terms of membership onto the CPC, it is a 1-year term for those 5 statutory members. Okay. So please do make sure you go back to your respective boards and committees to have that conversation to wrap it up next month. Okay. If anybody would like to chit chat about it privately to see if you want to chat about whether you have interest in this or how you want to either roll off, if you want to roll off or stay on board in either scenario, if you want to chat, always open to discuss that. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any questions about the timeline and next steps for continuity on the committee? Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, next item of business is review the full draft of the community preservation plan. So I'll turn it over to Ms. McAllister for an update there.
Sure. Yes, give me a moment. So Gail and I have been working hard on the cover design since our last conversation and feedback with the group. So we have a couple options for you. that I am pulling up. And let's see if I can get everything together here. So now, Gail, I don't know if you'd like to chime in at any point, but I'm going to show them a
Sure.
couple ribbons and a couple box
Okay,
versions,
sure.
okay? So, let's see that.
Jim and Melanie, are you able to see?
They can't
Not yet.
yet,
Okay.
but let's do this.
Almost there? Okay.
Oh.
While she's pulling that up, I'll kind of go through the process. We took a little bit to come to these. As you know, at the last meeting, we kind of reviewed the ones that were presented, and the ribbon one, the one that had the 4 different stripes across the front, seemed to be the most popular one, but it didn't really read the community preservation, and it was suggested that you color code the cover and in the insides as well. So what we did is we kind of went full circle. We looked back at the other ones and to try and see have some continuity to all the other printed materials that had been presented in the past with the advertising for the forum and everything. We went to a block rendition to see what that would look like. So we tried a block rendition using some different pictures and came up with a couple. This one and one without the wording of the different categories. And I put Rowan through a real art lesson 101 on opacity and balance and all that, so we had a lot of fun going back and forth, but I really appreciate her input. So this was the block version. It's a little stale, but yes.
Just can those online confirm, can you see it now and hear it now?
Yep, correct, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we looked at the pictures as well to try and see if we could find pictures that would represent those categories without having to identify them. So if somebody looked at that picture, they would understand what it was. So I know we all know what the categories are, but if you see those pictures without an identification label, would you understand that it's recreation, historical preservation, housing, and open space? And that was a difficult thing to do, because when you know what it's supposed to mean, it's hard to set yourself back and look at it from somebody else's viewpoint. So then we went back to the original ribbon one, and thinking, well, maybe all we needed to do was change the pictures that would represent those categories better. So this is what we came up with, is with the 4 different pictures, the same picture for affordable housing. We changed the historical preservation one. So this is without labels, and then there's a version of it with labels as well. So comments, questions?
All right.
I think you guys did a great job.
Yeah, I like
These
the,
look terrific.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Which,
So personally, I like the box labeled one.
okay, the box labeled one,
Yeah.
okay,
Now it's clear what it means. And I know if I'm more interested in open space, I'd rather skip all the front end and go to that colored coded pages inside the book,
Yes.
right? Application or the plan. So I think it's this one is really, I think that way it's much more continuity from the front page to all the way to the application, to the plan itself. I really like one comment, I don't know, it's Moby. So when I look at the historic preservation, my eyes are focused on the what do you call it?
Gazebo?
Gazebo rather than the back to church itself. So I thought maybe that's maybe in a different angle if we can get the church.
yeah, then we had
Image.
a couple different ones that we were using in there. One was
That.
kind of
Yeah.
how you could fit it into the picture, but
Yeah, with the ear on the top, not the top, right? The church has the ear on the top. Then it's much more self-explanatory. We're showing that as a historic preservation. Yeah. Otherwise, this is wonderful. It looks
Well, the
much
block
better.
one is in keeping with previous presentations that we've used, like I said, with the form advertising and stuff, but that doesn't mean it has to be the same.
Mhm.
It's just that's why we went back to that, to see what it would look like.
No, it's clear now. It's much better.
I like the block too, only because but it showcases the pictures, I think, better than the
And the
ribbon.
ribbon,
And I'm a huge fan of labels. The
Okay.
only concern I have is that the red and the orange are very
Yeah.
close to one
Yeah,
another here.
right.
There is a version where we've made it slightly more transparent. I know, right?
There's
So
only
my-
about 40 versions, yeah. Yeah.
I can see if I
We
can
changed the
quickly
opacity
call
on
it
the
up.
tag, so it was,
Let's see if
And
I
also maybe because
Sorry,
it's,
one more plus, oh, okay, the network dropped off for a moment there, so
see.
it's back on. It's
Okay.
back on now.
and
It says, okay, Jim and Melanie, you still there?
Go back.
Okay,
this one, okay. Well, we do have a transparent one. We can certainly do it. I think this is a different picture
yeah, that's a different.
that I tried, but we like the other one better.
That one we felt was too heavy on you're looking at the historic district and historic
Mhm.
preservation, it kind of takes away from the other categories.
We also
And
did
that
have
picture,
this.
yeah, so we changed those.
Anyway, we can certainly. I can find the version where the box labels are more transparent. Okay.
or maybe it's because of the screen. Sometimes the screen also makes the
Yeah, right.
differentiation, kind of differentiation
Right.
hard.
I think once you get into the body, the text, it's a little clearer too, of the color differential, you know, on the labels, so.
Mm-hmm.
all right, so we'll go to the phone. Jim, what do you think?
I like what's being displayed right now. I think that's a good representation of the four areas.
Melanie?
I'm equally happy with either the broad stripes or the boxes. I think the pictures are good, the colors are good. We could go either way as far as I'm concerned.
All right, so I do like the box, and I do share the same sentiment relative to the picture used for the historic building. What comes to my mind is the Christmas tree, and because that's what's there in the middle,
Mhm.
right? So, and I think I think it would be a good idea to avoid churches in the picture, because we've learned through history that that there's a conflict when trying to fund historic preservation
Oh,
for
okay.
churches. So I want to deliberately avoid that. But we have a lot of samples, right? I have a lot of pictures also of the 1830 building behind, it's on the side. There's also
Well, there's-
different angles of the library too, if you
Right,
want to use
and
that.
there's one that we had that was an angle that had more of the Sumner House view, that direction, so
So
I'm sure we can find
what
that.
I uploaded-
Or the Memorial Library as well, but we were trying to kind of balance the heaviness and, so it wasn't
On
like
the
this
brick.
big heavy building up in the corner,
No.
but we'll work on it.
Okay.
Growing
I
up.
just want to say that I do have more pictures available. I took a whole series. I was walking through the town for a long time, getting different
Yeah.
angles and stuff. So I only uploaded sampling.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you say, do we have do we have one that's like from this angle?
Right?
I have other examples,
Okay.
but leave it to you to settle
Well, no,
it.
if you have one that you
Just
think
ask me
would-
the question. Just ask me what you.
Now that
you're
you
looking
see
for. Yeah.
what's going on here, if you have one, just either post it on the,
Okay.
on the
Right.
Google
Cool.
Forums, the Google picture.
Cool.
And
Awesome.
then we can look at it.
One of the things, and also because I know because I took this picture, but the one at the bottom right one,
Yeah,
I accidentally had my finger in the picture. So
I
that's
cropped it. It's
Ah,
on
you
the
did.
other
Oh, you
side.
said,
I
okay.
think that's just a natural shadow, but I
the
noticed-
top left, the very top left is a little clipping. So you'll notice in some of the other ones. But the
did
right hand
notice
side,
that.
it is I use polarizer filter, so that's why the right looks darker
Nice.
than all that. Just a little side note, I was trying to get, I have like 100 pictures of this shot because there was a dragonfly that was flying around, and I was trying to get the dragonfly
yeah,
zoom like in sharpness, in focus so I can just have that.
It
But
didn't happen?
it worked, but
Oh.
then you don't have the background. That was a good luck. Okay, cool. Well,
Okay.
awesome. That's
Great.
thank you for your artistic work together, both of you. And I think either way, just bring that version through to next meeting. Okay, so now on to the content of the plan. So Roman, can you just give a summary about how you approached the revisions?
Yes. So many of you may have noticed, myself and Bernie went through your draft sections and provided some edits or suggestions, and most of you at this point have gone through and accepted or rejected or changed those suggestions, and so I've compiled it into a draft document that I can just quickly run through. I mean, very quickly. If I can. Oh, I have that open. Oh, maybe
Entire screen maybe.
Huh?
Entire screen.
Oh yeah. Okay.
The top one.
Okay, it's gonna give us a quick now. Alright. So this does not have the front page, but I'm just gonna scroll through very quickly so that you kind of get an idea for the pacing, right? I have this header, and then we have all of these sections.
Oh, sorry. I know we're not going through them, but just blockwise.
Yeah.
I think we had a new version of this one.
No, this one, this is the most recent version.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We can,
Is you're talking 2.0? Which
This is
section?
the background of Shrewsbury.
Yeah, I think that's, well, it's because they blocked it a little
we added
differently.
headings.
We added heading,
If that's-
Oh, okay.
separated,
Okay.
it looks different, but it's
Okay.
the same, it's just basically the same wording.
Right.
It's just that they divided it up into, like periods.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
But, and again, I don't want to get bogged down here, just kind of, but you see I've color coordinated, trying to
Yeah.
reinforce that. Again, here sort of, but I'll work on that. Yeah, obviously all of these, we'll have to figure out how to orient it. Greens still are accent color. But what I want to get to is our sections. So once we hit one of our big four, I change to the color coordinating, and then I have these pictures, and again, this will give you a time to review these pictures and give feedback on them. They're just the ones I picked offhand. So I've left space for putting in our goals, which we'll discuss slightly later, but either way, I'm hoping that to get this out hopefully in the next few days following our goals discussion. And I'm hoping that we can all take a look at it between tomorrow and our next June meeting and everyone read through it and provide any additional comments that you have to really finalize and wrap things up. And I'm going to do the same with Bernie. I'm going to do the same with the town manager's office so that they get a look at it as well and are able to provide feedback. And then hopefully at the June meeting we'll have this document with all your comments and we can just go through and accept or maybe discuss some and then approve the final version. So
I think basically any major edits really need to be, if you have a burning desire to have something change, it really has to get in the works like the next
soon.
few days, right? Anything wordsmithing, I think, only if it's material, right? If it really matters to change it at this point. So unless something egregious like, we can't write this as completely wrong,
Right.
right? Or something just stands out there that we shouldn't have on there. So we really want to get it, as iterated before, right? Going into the June meeting, we have to approve it there. Otherwise, we're going to be editing on the spot, and that will be a long day if we had to do that.
okay.
So, thank you.
I have a couple questions. One, now that you're on affordable housing, I've noticed in several places, looking through documents on our site as well as other sites, that community housing and affordable housing have been used interchangeably, and I didn't know whether we had decided on one or the other, or are we going to do that as well? I know a lot of communities
Yeah.
have switched over to community housing, but in looking at different plans.
Yeah.
Kathy
And-
had mentioned a possible move to attainable housing
Yeah,
as a term to be used as well.
I know Arlington uses community, that I happen to notice.
Yeah,
I don't
so-
know, I'm just bringing it up. If we should probably be consistent in
Yeah.
whatever we use.
I tried, I'll just say, we did have different references to it throughout the text, and I changed it all to affordable housing. Because
Okay.
I thought that was our takeaway from
That's what
the
I
last
thought
time we
too.
talked about, but, quick replacement wouldn't be.
On that, but maybe we follow the CPC, or how they are defining it, because it's mostly tying it to all other communities too, as a.
Right, exactly, that's a
Yeah.
good one, because, so I'll take action to ask Chase Mack from
Yeah.
the coalition. I think this is a pretty straightforward question to ask, and then we'll just take that and just move forward, because it's also gonna impact us on the application side and any documents we have, so, all right, thank you.
The second question is, are we limited to the amount of visual additions that we put into the sections, like more pictures or whatever? I mean, are we keeping it pretty?
Well, we can be done in June, and then in July, you have summertime to do whatever you wanna propose.
Okay, I mean, we can edit it for, I mean, is the final thing going to print in June to be distributed to the world, or is this like?
Well, yeah,
Post it on our
Yeah.
website.
I mean,
You know.
just to call it, to be done with it for this fiscal year.
I think the
Yeah.
content is important right
Yeah.
now, but it'd be nice to dress it up a little bit as well.
I would like
I
to dress
noticed
it
that
up
too, but it is already almost 30 pages, and we do have an appendix.
Yeah.
An appendix that I.
Thinking Watertown, aren't you?
It's pretty hard to not go, well, there's a couple others, but that one is really the, creme de la creme.
It is good. And it did have a lot of pictures on the bottom, right along the
Yeah,
bottom, a little background.
Strips of things.
I'd like to aspirationally get there.
Maybe the next.
We could
Yeah.
play around with adding it to the part of some of the sections that are shorter. We can certainly try.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But I think certainly content must be done
Yes, right.
by June, but I'm with you. Come July.
And this is
I can be patient.
this is a living document anyhow, so it's
Totally.
keep changing.
Exactly.
Iteratively, so.
Ask Chase Mack. Okay.
It looks like community housing is being used within the CPC website. The coalition website, yeah.
I wanted to share one last thing, Jason, if you don't mind. I want to be cognizant of time, but I do want to share with the committee that I compiled all of the comments from the board comments that you've collected, as well as the public hearing comments. So this I just finished up the other day, so my apologies. This is maybe the first time you're seeing it, but so this I took all the comments and kind of. I'll admit I lumped them together where I saw fit, and I know we all have the raw data, so you can go in and certainly kind of fact check my take of it. But essentially, I've created kind of a heat map, temperature map of the darker red being mentioned more, and then kind of the lighter colors trailing off with fewer mentions, and then the white just with one mention. So I can certainly, so this is something I've been thinking might be helpful to be part of the plan as kind of an appendix. But again, that's just my thought. I have these for you to play with and work with, and we can use them as needed, but then it lists here, formatting's a little off, but everyone we spoke to, and then I did the same for the public comments. Let's see here, so, and then categorize them by bucket, so.
Okay,
That's something.
that's very helpful.
I
Thank you.
think it'd be great to be an appendix if someone's wondering our
Yeah.
goals came from, where the needs come
And
from.
maybe that could we could
Sure.
flow into our conversation. This is if people want to open them at the same time. These are in their community preservation plan folder. Okay.
Okay.
So with that,
That's a really
turn it
good
back over.
All right, and that's, yeah, I think if you want to leave that up, because
Sure.
that's probably actually gonna just help us right now. Get into the next order of business, which is still part of the plan, but it's a sub-piece that's very important. And that is reviewing and finalizing the goals based on the community preservation needs that were identified, as Rowan just put on screen here. So each of the statutory members have provided draft goals, and now we'd like to review them just for concurrence that people are okay with those goals as specified, and the idea is to revise them now in person.
I'm
And
not gonna have them open if you want me to keep this up. So
okay, I
Otherwise-
guess good point.
unless to be note taker, otherwise I can remove this.
Okay.
No, it's good to leave that
Okay.
if we can. Can you remind me where the goals might be in the drive?
Let's see. I believe it's
Is it
in
You
the.
can cheat like I
Yeah.
did and just open
You can
Rowan's
share
email.
mine
Just-
if you want.
It should be. It's in the
Just
CPC
cheating.
plan.
CPC plan is outside, it's not in their folder.
Yeah, it's
And
not
then-
in a folder. I know.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
So I know, Jim, you provided entry, so certainly that's the spreadsheet. Anybody who's, Melanie and Jim, you're gonna wanna open up the spreadsheet in another window on your screen if you have that dual screen, or minimize this to get to the other screen, but you wanna get to that Google Drive spreadsheet, so you can see the goals as they were as you had submitted them. I know, Melanie, you're just looking at it from, because you didn't submit them, but Jim, you want to do that. Why don't we start with Gail and historic preservation?
And what would you like to know?
What are your?
You want me to read them?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
read them,
okay.
and then if anybody, and then let's just take
Sure.
open questions and comments
Okay.
about them.
Basically, the three goals that we came up with are preserve and rehabilitate historic artifacts, documents, monuments, and cemeteries, which kind of is a priority issue up there on the screen. The second goal is to encourage reuse and rehabilitation of historic buildings and support preservation of privately owned historic resources that demonstrate appropriate public benefit as required by law. And the third goal is support survey of historic resources for public awareness, which would include inventories and, all that kind of stuff. So, I think that covers the items that were presented at public forums and in the other organizations' requests. So have we missed anything? I do have a comment that was up there before on the number 5 schoolhouse.
Here or the other one?
That one there, preserve schoolhouse number 5.
Mm.
And that actually the schoolhouse is privately owned by this historical society. So I don't know how that would factor in, but I don't know that we need to, if we need to include that as an itemized kind of resource anymore.
Well, I think number 2 in your proposed goal
Would cover that.
would cover, because, specify why. It's saying encourage reuse and rehabilitation. And the rehabilitation piece is really the key word there, because that means that we'll be rehabilitating it to be up to par, to be ADA compliant. And by doing that, you're also gonna get the accessibility for ADA, but all accessibility, right?
Okay,
And it's something that they could do. They could request a grant, right, to help with that part, make it accessible.
just wanted a clarification
Yeah, no, I think it's
for sake of the,
May I ask a question?
absolutely.
So support survey of historic resources is what, like what exactly is that?
Well, many times you have to do research on something before you can actually accept
Oh, yes.
whether it's a viable project, or just doing the inventories on different, you know,
What we have.
historic
yeah, right, right.
housing, historic resources.
So it's,
And
it's,
each
a, it's a research.
Survey isn't necessarily like visual survey, it's just documentation and stuff.
Ah, okay, yeah, that's what I'm trying to differentiate.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's not the engineering type of survey, but is that basically what you think too, Jason?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. I do want to comment that what's on screen right now is on the historic preservation column there in the red, historic markers and wayfinding, even though it's a mobile app. So the historic markers are yes, like the CPA, but the other part of it for those who submitted this as an interest, the wayfinding part is not allowable CPA use.
And neither is the mobile app. Yeah, that
Right.
would be under recreation, wouldn't it? Or couldn't that be, couldn't we do something under recreation?
Well, it's a stretch because
Okay.
it really is about affecting the land to become a
Yes, the
recreational
wayfinding,
piece.
But if there was a historic tour, say.
No, because it's not, you'd be creating, you can't create.
Oh, and
Yeah.
recreation couldn't create that?
No,
Okay, got it.
no.
Well, then
At
we
least
should
I,
probably
at least
take
I'm,
that
I'm commenting as
Right.
a one of 9-member board, and I would say this is how I would interpret the CPA allowable uses.
Okay,
But we're not, I mean,
right.
yeah, certainly we're not debating the individual projects, but I can't wait till we get to that.
Yeah,
point,
exactly.
Which would be great. But I think that's what's want to call it out because for folks that may be watching this, you know, all those people watching this video.
Both of them.
Oh, both of them. Not everything is allowable in the CPA legislation, and so that's why we have to look at it from a what's allowable perspective from the state, and before monies can be expended on it. So anyway, all right, moving on that part.
Maybe a point to that, if we were to include this in an appendix, to have it noted that this is community input and
Yes.
not everything
That would
suggested
be good.
while recorded would be allowed under the CPA statutes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just
So
so
did not
nobody
go
said.
through
"Mm."
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
want to
thank
know
you.
their folks to know they
Yeah.
were heard,
Right,
but,
right.
and they don't know all the rules,
Yeah,
we're
that's
still
right.
figuring it out.
I agree.
Right. I do want to bring up that Ms. Loss from town management. Is it town planner?
Assistant
town
town
planner.
manager.
Town manager, sorry. Had commented about as well. So I'll just read what she wrote. She's saying she asked if there should be a fourth saying preserve historic documents.
That's another tricky one, right?
So I think we have that already covered in number one.
That's number one,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
all.
I'm commenting because
Okay.
it was asked, and so
Yeah,
I just want to be respectful of the request as well, and just say I think that's covered through the number one. But I think that for number one, and maybe I just overlooked this when you and I were included. I think you got preserve and rehabilitate, but there's also restore. So that last line is restore and rehabilitate. And the
Yeah.
reason why I think that's important to add there is preserve, restore, and rehabilitate in the blank, 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 is because you can't rehabilitate a document.
Right.
You can restore a document, right? Rehabilitation is around the buildings, and accessibility.
So should
So-
rehabilitate be struck from that goal
No,
then?
oh,
Yeah.
And favor and replace
preserve
with
and
restore?
restore as
Restore.
opposed to rehabilitate.
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I agree,
That's okay.
restore rather than rehabilitate.
No, that's what I'm still stuck. If
Yeah, go
okay.
for it.
So, do we have that capture the historic markers and wayfinding? Not necessarily the app part, but the first part of the request, like historic markers and wayfinding.
I wonder if wayfinding cannot be supported by the Community Preservation Act, perhaps the restoration of the historic reference historic artifacts to be way found could be the basis of a partner grant. So, yeah.
How I'm looking at it is like, there's a board saying that you're here, if you're interested, next interesting historic building is on this road, like whatever it is. So you can walk or drive so much and be there in like 2 minutes.
That
So-
was the intention.
Yeah, and the intention from, so, I think as we go through this, in all these categories, there's gonna be, someone's written, I have a very specific project, and I can see this thing done, but our goals have to be at a
Right.
10,000-foot level, right? And so, markers would be covered under a broad term of artifacts, or monuments, one of those two, right? So I think we're covered from the historic markers perspective. Wayfinding is not, and in and of itself is not allowable. So like when you look at the headstone, the preserved historic headstones, that's covered through number 1. Historic inventory is covered by 3. Digitalization of historic documents is on itself is not an allowable use because again it's creating. However, in the spirit of it, restoring historic documents is in the realm of this. Temperature controlled preservation spaces, again, that's preserving what has been deemed a historical artifact. So this is another caveat here too. Anything in the historic category that's going to get funding has to be deemed as either locally, in the state level, or the National Registry,
Significant.
Yes.
Historical asset.
Asset, exactly. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have questions or comments about the goals for the historic preservation side?
And Jason, I'd like to make a comment or two.
Please go.
Okay, hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you correctly. Good. Yep.
Okay, yeah, under the open space, let me just point out that people would like to see a parking lot in Carlstrom Forest off Gold Street, and also would like to preserve Ward Hill. Both of those are privately owned. While we'd all like to see that, and we would like to work towards that, it's up to the owners of the property to.
Melanie, you're trailing off.
I'm sorry?
Keep the volume up.
Oh, okay, let's see, what can I do?
No, just speaking louder. You started off loud, just keep the same high voice. Sorry, kind of the strain there, I know you're not feeling well.
Oh, okay. Just saying, Carlstrom and Ward Hill are both privately owned properties, and if they do not care to partake of a preservation plan, then there's nothing we can do about it. Well, in the Carlstrom case, the parking area, it's a lot of it is down to what their needs are as owners of the property. So I just have to say that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think thank you for the comments on the open space part. What I'd like to do is close out the historic preservation piece, and then so we can formally move on to the next column. So, last call for historic preservation. Jim or Melanie, historic preservation.
Okay.
All good?
You good? Okay. We're good. All right. So to Melanie's part about open space, let's read out the goals who wrote that.
That was me.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we'll bounce it off.
Okay.
It's well, maybe you should do one at a time. Maybe one and
One at a
pause.
time?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Protect additional open space by identifying and prioritizing parcels of interest so the town can develop a long-term plan and act quickly as needed. Provide safe and easy public access to open spaces. For example, Carlstrom Forest, Lake Quinsigamon. That's the first goal. Do you want me to keep going?
I think because they're pretty lengthy.
I know.
I think no, it's good. It's
We
good.
need to hit the 10,000-foot level.
Yeah.
please.
So, I mean, examples are okay because that's the way it gives context. Does anybody have a comment about number 1?
No, I think that's an appropriate goal. It's broad enough. And I mean, the examples, like you said, will help people realize what you mean, but these goals are intended to not necessarily be the specific to-do list, but to give people ideas of what projects are priorities and what sorts of things are allowable. So I think that's perfectly appropriate first goal.
Okay. I will read out what, again, Ms. Loss had provided feedback on this one. In her view, she saw that second sentence sounded like it should be its own goal.
That's what I was just gonna say too. The provide safe and easy, public access to open space. That could be its own
I
goal.
would agree with that,
Okay.
yeah.
Jim has also raised his hand.
Yeah, so Jason and folks, so I kind of agree with that last comment. And given that goal number 2 is kind of a recreation goal as well, maybe we can just substitute that second sentence for goal number 2, because that same thing is part of recreation goals as well.
I agree.
That's true. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So it sounds like we agree on, all agree?
Mm-hmm.
All agree? Okay, on the number 2 that's printed there, moving that to recreation, and then breaking out the the second sentence to be the new number 2.
Because there is a recreation goal which does talk about trails, and passive recreation is already said in recreation, so we don't need to repeat it.
Yeah, the third one is also looks like if we expand connectivity, maybe we can combine all into one.
Okay. So I'm sorry, can you just repeat your proposal so they can hear you?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm also I'm thinking maybe the third point is also a sort of gets into second point if we add the connecting the parcels. So providing access to individual properties and also connecting those sort of way, like, so then that falls under all accessibility related goal, and I'm on a high level.
I feel like so I feel like number 3 is like a super like narrow goal relative to number one and the new number 2 combined together can create number 3, which is that increase. So you can also look at it from the perspective of hey, I have a parcel here, but if I just target something in between, if it's available, now I can make something interconnected, where I may not have been thinking of that interconnectivity in any other light, right? Maybe it's saying, it's too small, but with the light of a narrow passage to be a path, and now to make these 2 available, now we're talking, right? So I think, I don't know, I can see either leaving it as its own, I think it stands on its own, but it can also be incorporated into the 2. I'm on the fence. I think there's an opportunity, but I'm on the fence on that proposal, personally.
If I could just contribute that historically and I've sat through 2 open space and recreation plan developments, that has been a goal that has come up through the years. So I feel like it's important enough in the past to keep it separate if we can.
Okay. All right.
Number
The
3.
the connectivity.
Yeah.
number
Okay.
3.
So I think Jim would have been on that as well, right? And Jim and Melanie?
Not necessarily,
No?
no.
Jim did it back.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
And the open space.
The open space plan?
Yeah.
So Parks is part of it, Jason, but I'm not a representative. I think Jim Brown is for open space and recreation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, certainly, I was just offering whether you had any opinion on that as well.
We'll still take your opinion, Jim.
Yeah. Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. No, so I agree that with Martha that it's something that it needs to be out there, right? Because I think it's one of our goals, at least one of the goals that I thought of when it came to recreation as well, is the ability to. I used it as provide. So when we get to mine, I'll talk a little bit about it, but like improve access and connectivity, so that they're not just individual pieces of land. They actually mean something to the community. That's when I think of connectivity, I don't necessarily mean always physical connectivity. I mean, like, you understand what it means to go to a Dean Park or to whatever else. That the connectivity is between the programs, between what's being offered. It's not necessarily physical connectivity. But I think it's important that when you talk about open space, you're pretty much talking about land, that you do reference the connectivity part of it, because that is important.
All right, thank you. And
Hope that helps.
yes, it does. Thank you. And Melanie, any thoughts on that, or are you good?
Jim makes a good point. In fact, I tend to be very physical and like little trails between things, but he makes a good point about programs affording a level of connectivity that I had not thought of. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else? So I'm hearing more folks saying keep number 3 as its own unique. Last call, comments on that one. All right, so 3 stands. Okay, and number 4, please. Yep.
Preserve and improve water quality in ponds and Lake Quinsigamond through invasive species management and other measures. I wonder if other people feel like it's too specific to call out invasive species management?
That was a pretty hot item in one of the board meetings. If I forget which one it was, I think it was the Board of Selectmen. That was a pretty interesting topic, and they specifically called it out. I think Mo called that out, if I'm not mistaken, or somebody did. I forget who, but I don't think it's too specific, because I think it's something that is definitely a concern, even from a recreational point of view, is the invasive species and the ability to provide safe recreation on our waterways because of that.
If I might just jump in there, the problem I see with that is that the town is already paying for invasive plant control, if I'm not mistaken, and that we are not allowed to, what's the term, take over a town program.
Supplant. Not allowed to supplant municipal funds for CPA funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we would work that out. I personally, I feel invasive plant studies are entirely legitimate, and I think they apply to terrestrial plants as well.
Maybe it's simply rewording it to say preserve and improve water quality in ponds and Lake Quinsigamond through all available or all appropriate measures, or consider what measures are available. We just edit that, and then when the time comes, see what's being funded and what isn't.
Right, because there might be areas that the town is not funding that have a problem. I mean, they may not be funding something in Dean Pond, Dean Park Pond, but if they're funding
And
it like
maybe measures we
Quinsigamond,
haven't thought of yet. I just came back from RA2, where there are students doing things with aquatic life and pond health that it was mind-boggling. Some of them might live here.
Yeah, and is there, Jason, I don't know if the answer to this question, but is there anything against CPC funds being used to augment existing? I.e., whereas there may be measures being used to control, but are there other things like education or providing awareness to the community, or raising red flags when needed? Like, are there, like, if the funds are being used to control, i.e. pesticides or whatever is being used to control, can the CPC funds be like an augmentation to that and say, hey, before you put your boat in the water, where has it been lately? That kind of thing. Have you inspected your boat for this, or is there something that we can do that augments what's already being put out there?
Unfortunately, I don't think so, because CPA funds would be in the realm of the capital side of things. So I think any education programs would be more on an expense side and be say like a department cost. However, I think there are some other opportunities here. Like, for example, there was a town, I think I called this out at the forum, where a town purchased a weed eater from the, for the ponds. So it's certainly different from, let's say, where the town historically has been doing, I think, chemical treatments, right? But this is a capital investment into a mechanical device to do that. So that might be an option. But to Melanie's point, we do, and again, this is now in the realm of like when we're actually reviewing projects, but I'll just put out there, we do have to be cautious about what is money's already spent from the town already, and we cannot replace those funds with CPA money. So I think one thing I would like to add, revise here, is I think, I agree with the improving what we need to do, but I'd like to stick with as much as possible where feasible, using the CPA verbs, just so that it's clear and it already implies other things with it. I'll give you an example. So preservation already, if we say preserve water quality, it already comes with that built in, protecting personal or real property from injury, harm, or destruction. So then that gives you all those categories, where anything that could possibly harm the pond, right, will by default already improve your water quality or protect it from further harm. And of course, in the open space side, rehabilitation and restoration can only be possible if the property was purchased with CP funds, community preservation funds. So, things like Lake Michigan obviously can't, right? None of our water bodies are privately owned. So in this sense, I feel preservation is the most useful verb to use here. So I'm proposing we just strike out improve. Because
Okay, I do feel like there was something more explicit for water quality in there, but don't put me on the spot.
what I shared was the one pager from the Department of Revenue that says what's an allowable use, and it's the legalese version that has all that detail is what is allowed. I mean, it's from the spirit of it. I'm okay with it if we want to leave in there. When again, these are goals that it doesn't mean that a project cannot come outside of this list. It's really just directional for us over the next community preservation committee.
What I would like to be able to capture in it is the idea that the water quality can be enhanced. Because in some places it is degraded.
Okay.
For example, Jordan Pond. So, but I will bow to the spirit of working with the existing structure and vocabulary.
Okay. Yes.
Are we done with that one? With that goal?
Well,
I wanted to revisit another goal in this category when you're ready.
Okay, just wanted to close it out. So,
Sure.
Does anybody else? I mean, that's just my opinion.
Deb-
1 of 9.
Deb, what are your thoughts?
I think it is important to keep something in there, pull out the thesaurus and think of what the right word is, because it's more than just preserving water quality. If we have the opportunity to improve or enhance it, or another cup of coffee, I'll think of another adjective.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
verb.
the restoration side would only, you can add restoration, but that will cover only where the lands were purchased with community preservation monies. So at the end of the day, even if this goal said buy, right, or some other verb, we would still have to fall back on. At the end of the day, we still have to fall back on the allowable use chart. So we'd have to fit it into one of those checkboxes for approval.
What's
for
the
review.
definition again, Jason?
Because we wouldn't want to preserve something that's lousy.
The definition in the
The
Department of Revenue?
legalese, as you called it, yeah.
Okay. So preservation is defined here as protect personal or real property from injury, harm, or destruction. And the other one is rehabilitation and restoration, and that is making capital improvements or extraordinary repairs to make assets functional for intended use, including improvements to comply with federal, local, state, building or access codes or federal standards for rehabilitation and historic properties. So
rehabilitation does include the word improvement in it, in the definition.
including improvements to comply with, yeah.
Part of the issue is that these water bodies, such as Jordan Pond and Lake Quinsigamond, cannot be purchased.
Right.
So they're in their own category.
Right. So that's okay. I'm okay with. I'm again one of 9. I am okay with moving improve, but when we get to the point where we're reviewing projects, we have no choice but have to make sure it fits into one of these buckets. So just saying that's fine. So the goal couldn't stand as is, and it's not a technical issue. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, given the fact that 3 of my goals have the word improve in it, Jason, I'm really interested in your thoughts on this.
All right. Well, okay, we'll get that. So.
And to be nitpicky, in the final version of our goals, I'd prefer we not use slashes, that we actually use full grammatical sentences. Just preserve or improve, preserve and or.
So which would you like, and or?
Well, you don't have to, not everything needs to be preserved and improved. So preserve or improve would be fine.
Okay.
It's not like sweet and sour.
Can we do and/or?
No, we can't. And if anybody
Come on.
addresses an envelope with Mr./Mrs., I'm gonna get violent.
All right, so we have a I'll take back the improve. I'm fine. Or and or. Melanie's shaking her head.
I'm gonna just say and, just make like
Jim just wasn't difficult. Okay. All right. The more oars. The oars have it.
either or works, Jason. Either or works.
But I honestly feel like Martha
Yeah,
is
it's a cute.
the expert on this category, so whatever Martha thinks, I'm good with.
And okay, that's number 4.
Sorry, going back to that invasive species, so are we leaving it like that, or are we pulling it up a little higher, like effective management or something like more general rather than specific?
I think we can raise it up. We can get rid of the invasive species and
Keep it managed.
all right. So can you say it revised?
preserve and improve.
Probably louder. Let's get there.
That was loud. Preserve and improve water quality in ponds and Lake Quinsigamond through through appropriate measures.
Yeah, any available and effective measures, or something like that.
Yeah, that gets much more general rather
Yeah.
than more specific.
Yeah.
The next great idea we might not have heard yet.
Appropriate. Okay, through appropriate measures. Okay.
And Martha, so that's also one of my goals from a recreational point of view. And the word ponds, while I don't want to be pedantic, but I use language called existing waterways because there's more than just ponds that we have to be concerned about when it comes to that. And I don't know if you have a preference or not about adding to the language of ponds and changing it to existing waterways. To just be a broader coverage of the water in town.
Right. No, I don't think so. I think I was thinking about specific water bodies when I wrote that goal. And
Yep.
wasn't necessarily, so are you thinking like the north end, the very north end of Lake Quinsigamond?
Yeah, I was thinking about things like where people don't necessarily use the lake. So for me, the lake may be a boating body of water, but for somebody else, it may be a fishing. I know that when we were small, my in-laws lived right on the lake, and we would go up to a little brook right off the lake where we would go and we would pitch rocks and do things like that. So I was thinking about there's lots of little tributaries that lead into this that people use that we don't even know about, right? Or that I didn't know about. You know, now I'm a 30-year resident, but before I didn't even know this brook existed. So in my brain, when I was thinking about goals for recreation and thinking about water, I was thinking there are tributaries that lead into lakes and ponds, and if we're going to talk about improving and making or maintaining those type of, or rehabilitating those type of areas, we shouldn't just limit it to the ponds and to the lake. We should also think about those other little things that people take advantage of that we may not even know about.
And to that point, I just started interrupted. To that point, I think if we look at open space needs, you have folks that want to talk about water, right? Improving water quality, and let's see, this.
Go to the other one.
Yeah. Let's go to the public comment. Is that which the third one in?
More parking, boat washing stations.
I'm not seeing it really.
Nothing in there.
We probably don't want to be so general as water quality. We want to be specific that we're talking about bodies of water, big and small, because some folks might read water quality and talk about their water's hard and their hot water heater is unhappy. So we want to make sure it is about naturally occurring bodies of water.
And waterways, Jim has a really important point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little brooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, brook is one thing that comes to my mind.
So could you
It's
say,
a pond, and
it-
then are we leaving out the brook? So we have a lot of brooks that run through.
could you simply say ponds, waterways, and lake segment?
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Cover it?
If Bob was okay with it, I would be okay with that.
Yeah, as long as waterways isn't too general a term. And if you wanted to say streams, waterways isn't a term that I'm that familiar with, so.
Well, yeah, what
Yeah.
about intermittent streams and all, I mean, any body of water that is vulnerable even at any period of time, you know, you're gonna have brooks, streams, rivers, lakes.
And what
Okay,
is the
so-
difference between a stream and a brook?
Size. Size.
All right, so open space as is defined for community preservation already has a very wide, right? So open space will be already covered. So number one, they're protecting additional open space by identifying prioritizing parcels of interest. Blah blah blah. That's going to be your catch-all. That if there was a property that was feeding into the water wells that we want to protect for the next 100 years, instead of an industry going there and polluting that, and then dealing about 100 years from now, we could do that, right? Because it's still covering to protect that space. If you want to focus in on a particular hot button issue in terms of our water, I think number 4 can dive into that targeted thing you'd like to see. That you're hearing from obviously from the open space recreation plan and all the inputs that you've been hearing. So I think we're okay to get a little narrower on number 4 because we have number 1 to give us a broader perspective.
So how about preserve and improve water quality in streams, ponds, and Lake Quinsigamon through appropriate measures?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That
I'm
sounds
okay with
good.
that.
Okay.
Okay. Melanie, were you able to hear that? I know as our you are on mute. You are still on mute. Okay.
Is she?
Yeah, there's-
Yes, now, can you hear me?
yes.
I'm going to have to review a lot of things from the tape, I guess, because it's very hard for me to follow what's going on here.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure that I have it written down correctly, okay? Preserve and improve water quality in streams, ponds, and Lake Quinsigamon through appropriate measures. Okay,
There you go.
okay, cool. Alrighty, so that, we're done with open space.
Gail,
No, I think
No,
it was,
you
I
want it
think we
first,
covered it, but I was just wanted to clarify, the two, provide safe and easy access to open space, and then create safe passive recreation opportunities. Would those address any do we need to address ADA stuff in this top, or does that?
No, sorry,
strictly-
number two as printed is moving off to recreation.
Oh, okay, I
Right,
missed
so
that.
we'll come back, we'll circle back on that, but I just wanna make sure we're
Okay,
done
yeah,
with it.
all right, so, but are we still, is it provide safe enough of a definition for access for accessibility for people? Or is that covered more under recreation? You know what I'm saying? Is safe giving,
I think it covers.
it covers it? Yeah.
I think
Is it
safe
safe
is
for
broad
one, or
enough,
we
and I think
safe
it's
for-
good to be
should be
broad
safe
in that
for
particular
everybody,
area,
right?
because safe could take a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people.
Right.
So I think you want to leave safe open and as broad as possible. My opinion. 1 of 9. Or maybe I'm 2 of 9.
Could you repeat that?
For the board, maybe I'm
Safe.
7 of 9.
Sorry. Well, being wide is good, safe is good, it's broad
Okay,
enough, yeah.
no, that's fine, I just wanted to make sure that that's what the intent was.
Yeah, I think, I think there is comments about, like, let's say, more parking at open space, better access to Carlstrom Forest. Let's see here.
Are you going to leave those examples in, Jason? Do you think we need to leave the examples in?
Oh, I don't know, what do you folks think? I'm on the fence on whether to include examples.
I mean, if we give specific examples, then our goals aren't quite as broad.
Yeah.
And certainly, people see specific examples in these worksheets, and we could talk to specific examples, but perhaps in the interest of a document that covers the big picture, the specific examples go somewhere else, or in the narrative, the goals are supposed to be big.
Okay. Melanie, I don't know if you heard that, what do you think about excluding examples? Because it seems to imply that that's the only place to apply these.
It's kind of a raw document, and there's a lot to, there's some value to that. When you have a lot of people's opinions out there, people can say, "Oh, yeah, I remember saying that myself. That must be my comment," and that has a certain value. I really can't object to it, to tell you the truth.
Anybody else?
I don't need.
Not your
exam-
amount
I don't
to,
need
no,
examples.
I'd be afraid that somehow it would suggest a bias on the part of the committee if our examples were only in one neighborhood, or they happen to be big spaces, not small spaces.
So you don't want we're not gonna see improved playgrounds at places like Holando. Okay.
Improve my backyard, that would be biased.
All right, I am sensitive to the word bias, and I don't want to imply bias, and so I will be in favor of removing examples given.
They're good examples.
Aye?
I,
Okay, 3 out of 9, 4,
5.
okay, majority. Okay.
Makes it cleaner.
Provide safe and easy public access to open spaces, period. Okay, that's number 2, all right.
Sorry. So it looks like we have, I know it's still a rough draft, so it looks like we have 4 on some and 3 on some. Do we want to consolidate it all, have same set of goals?
No, there's no, every town's doing their own, some of them have a lot of goals, and it just seems like you kind of added a punch list of projects, two down. So in my opinion, I think 3 to 5 is a good general goal list. Unless you, again, myself, if you have something in mind, you want to say, I think we really need to add a 5th or a 6th.
No, it's
You're
just
good.
consistent across the four parts, and that's what I'm thinking. that way it looks much more consistent across, rather than, oh, we have more open spaces, more floor tables.
I think it's good, in my opinion, I think it's okay because as long as it's broad enough and it's we cover the spirit of what folks are asking for. In some spaces, 3 is, I think, suffices for all tasks, or maybe 4 or 5, depending on what it is. Does anybody else have an opinion on limiting the number or setting a number of goals?
They're all 3 or 4 right now.
Bless you.
I think that's,
Affordable housing and historic preservation are only 3, maybe. It looks like, oh,
I think the category kind of dictates the number of goals as well. You know, open space and recreation have a lot more specifics, so you're gonna need more goals to cover those.
All right, so maybe
As long as
that's
we cover everything, we would know what difference did they make up in goals, right?
it'd be
4 or
different if,
5.
one had 2 and the other had 7.
Yes, yeah.
3 and 4 seems okay.
all right. Anybody else on that point? Okay. All right. So sorry.
That's fine. Just wanted to-
Okay. All right. So so open space is done. Awesome. All right. Since let's just roll into recreation since it's tied.
Jason, can I jump in real quick? And Jim, I hope you can hear me. So when Jim sent me his goals, he basically broke down every comment as to how it related to the goal that he had drafted, and it was the way it was formatted. So I ended up going into and pulling out a couple examples for the goals that you see on your sheet. Now, given our past conversation or just recent conversation, we can strike those, but I just want to acknowledge that I did amend them slightly so that you could see what the work Jim had done to try to categorize everything. So
Wow,
just to say
wow,
that.
bro, thanks. Geez,
But
that's great. So,
take it away.
yeah, so what I did was, I did basically what Ro did on the screen here, right? What I did was I just took every comment and put it into a bucket, and then, just so you understand the process that I went through, and then tried to develop a goal off of the comments. That's basically how I did it. I also saw what Martha had put in there for goals for open space, and I tried to tie them together because I felt like they were both kind of very similar in that regard. So I do want to say that I plagiarized from Martha, as well as, utilizing every single comment that I possibly could find on those sheets that Rowan had provided, right? So that's where I ended up with my 4 goals for recreation. And Rowan, I appreciate the way that you did what you did. I think it's great. I think that based on the discussion here, I think we've kind of said, let's move away from providing specific examples, but I think there is a place, as Melanie said, there is a place, because if somebody reads this and sees, hey, that was my comment, they'll have a personal connection to it. So I get that. But anyway, so with that being said, goal number 1, preserve, maintain, improve. I use slashes. It can be and or, doesn't matter to me. Safe recreational opportunities. So that to me was the goal number 1, is to make sure that folks that are going to be doing recreational activities in town feel safe, right? So whether that's preserve, rehabilitate, make it better than it is today, whatever language folks are okay with, the idea is that I wanted to make sure that folks have the ability to feel comfortable in their setting when they're there doing an activity, wherever that activity may be. So if you want to just take out the what's in parentheses, that's fine. If you want to change the slashes to ands, I'm okay with that as well too.
But 3 of them, you can have commas.
Or even commas, that's fine.
Oh, boy. Eagle-eyed.
All right. I do want to. I thank you for putting them together. Rowan, thank you also for putting this together as well. I do want to unfortunately say removing maintain, because maintain will imply maintenance, and that won't be allowable. So, but I think the rest stands, right? I think it's pretty direct, right? Preserve.
On the
Or-
3rd one, we might want to change persevere to preserve. The 3rd one.
Oh
The
yeah,
last
thanks for
2
that.
years
That's a
have been
type
a
one.
lot
Thank
about
you for that.
perseverance
Yep.
and resilience, so it's
Perseverance,
okay if we use that word instead.
Thank you. So just maybe do preserve and improve safe recreational opportunities. And I purposely use the language of opportunities because, again, I tried to keep it as broad as possible because there could be things that I don't know about when it comes to what does safe mean to somebody else, that I didn't want to limit it to a specific area. Want me to go on to the next, or do you want a discussion?
Are you, what's your thought in this goal relative to creating? Because with preserve and improve, we're talking about existing recreational land.
Say that one more time, Jason. Sorry.
If we leave it as preserve and improve, etc.,
Yep.
then we're talking about existing recreation land.
True,
And-
but
yeah.
in the context of recreation, doesn't necessarily have to be land, right? It could be anything, right? Again, I don't want to I don't think it should be strictly geared towards land, right? Because recreation could have many different forms, right? And that's why I use the term opportunities, and I used, like, again, because I didn't want to pigeonhole it when it's a goal. I didn't want to pigeonhole it to a certain thing only, right? Because somebody may come up with an idea that's not land-based.
Okay.
Are you suggesting, Jason, that maybe that should be preserve, improve, or create
Yes.
safe
I'm
recreational
okay with the word, yeah,
opportunities?
that's fine. I'm okay with create.
Yes.
Maybe that's it. And then if we said that, we could possibly delete the third one, which was to preserve, acquire, and develop, by saying create in the first goal. That would be pretty much the same thing.
Oh,
Could be, yeah.
right.
So maybe
And then we're closer,
Jason.
they're all being the same number of goals.
Yeah.
I see what's going on here. You two are colluding here. You're plant.
So Jason, maybe the word develop can be as opposed to create. So maybe if we combine the two, preserve, improve, develop safe recreational opportunities. Then that'll get rid of the third bullet that has persevere as opposed to preserve.
So preserve, improve, and develop is what you're proposing, right? Preserve, improve, and develop safe recreational opportunities. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Anybody thoughts on that? On the revised?
That's good. Sounds good.
Preserve, improve, and develop safe recreational opportunities.
Yeah, guess that covers it.
Does that cover the sports-minded folks too? Yes?
I think it would.
Okay. Melanie, any comment that? I don't know if you certainly if you can't hear something, I will certainly repeat anything that you like.
No, go ahead, you're fine.
No, I'm saying from an input perspective. So I know minutes you'll go back to the videotape, but if there's any,
Yeah, I'm okay.
okay, sounds good. Okay, so we revised number 1. Number 3 is now gone from recreation. We did say we were moving number 2 that was originally printed open space to this, but it's already covered. So
Yep.
that's not actually moved, it's just gone. Let me just check the videotape here. Check the
Oh, Kristen's comments.
response, yes. She circled open space area separate to above. No, so that's not, would not
Some of them may
apply.
not be relevant anymore, but
Yeah, not relevant anymore.
I just
However,
wanted to share those comments with you.
no,
as we
that's all
received them.
good. It's all good. Number 4, though, she does have a comment on that, which is, it currently says preserve and improve on water quality and recreation. She suggested a striking out water quality, and I think water quality because that will be going up to the open space side.
Okay. Yep. I'm good with that.
Anything else? Okay. Preserve and improve, just say
Just use
recreation.
Recreation.
On existing, waterways. And of course, no example given. Oh, so what would stand then? What would be left then?
what
what
do
would
we-
be, yeah,
What did we do with improve access and?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've
that would be
missed
goal
the
number 2,
whole
Jason, improve access.
ADA stuff up there, I think, haven't we? Did I miss something?
I think ADA depends on
I
the
didn't-
project.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the,
no, sorry, my comment was on the fourth one.
oh, the fourth one, yeah, no, that's fine.
No, I don't think that's fine.
Recreation,
I'm-
oh,
I was pointing out that once that's revised, what is driving number 4? What in community input is driving number 4? So it says here, preserve,
There were
preserve and
comments
improve.
about improving access to, in particular, people mentioned Lakewood Sigmund, having
So the-
more recreational
Flow
opportunities
into
for the
through
public.
rec spaces.
preserve.
Without, what's the verb that you're looking for?
So,
What is it, what are we preserving?
So one of the things I can tell you that was out there was there was a boat washing station. That was one of the items that people were, that there was a comment about. I think it was only mentioned once, a boat washing station. And I believe that was meant in terms of improving, you know, the experience of the people that use the lake as a boating recreational activity, right? So I believe that's, for me, that's where that came from, was to say, okay, well, we have existing things that happen on the lakes today, right? We have boat ramps, we have police that man the boat ramps. Like, there are various things that happen to allow people to utilize Lake Quinsigamond. And I specifically mentioned Lake Quinsigamond because that's where the majority of what people know about recreational activities happen, right? So when I was thinking about this goal, and there was very few comments on the lake, but again, I took the 4 or 5 that they were there and tried to put them into a goal, right? Because I didn't want to leave the water out because it is a major part of the recreational activities. So anyway, when it comes to preserve, it's just to make sure that we don't lose that. We don't, you know, continue to allow Worcester to dump tons of sewage into our lake. That we don't, you know, that we, if there are opportunities to improve, we take those opportunities to improve it as well. You know, whatever that is. And I don't have the insight today to know what that might look like 10 years from now.
Some of those
may I-
improvements might be the access to the waterways, the adjacent parks that add to people's enhancement or enjoyment of the waterways. We have water in town, but not a lot of folks know either use of it or get to enjoy it as much as they'd like.
so I think your access comment is, and your access comment is about number 2. And number 4, so are we good to leave number 4 as preserve and improve recreation on existing waterways?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Stop.
The rest of the team is okay with that.
Jim, you used the word opportunities before. Would you want opportunities in this one too?
Sure, absolutely.
Can I just comment here a sec? The boat washing initiative was, I believe, came from, I think, the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association, if I'm not mistaken. And they wanted that as a measure to prevent the spread of invasive species. And there is a precedent for that, apparently, in CPC. But that was where that came from. It wasn't just to have a nice clean boat or anything. It was for sanitation.
Got it. Thanks, Melanie, for that. Wasn't sure the context with that.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that can certainly, that's pretty much covered through open space and that preserving and improving water quality. Are we good to land, to keep number 4 as preserve and improve recreation on existing waterways?
Do you want to add develop? The same like.
Well, I'm not suggesting to make any edits, I'm just trying to get a commitment. Do we want to keep it as this, or do you want to revise it? You proposing a revision, or are you happy with the way it landed as is?
Proposing like a develop, add and develop into that. So like, let's say access points to waterways. Maybe at some point, maybe we want to have access point.
Is your
Would
proposal?
recreational opportunities cover that?
And I think access will be covered in number 2, the bullet number 2. I think access will be covered there. And again, access isn't delineated as land, so it can be again, broad enough to include waterways as well.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah. Then
He said yes.
Okay.
Okay, so, number 4. Yes or no? Keep it as is, as preserve and improve recreational existing waterways?
If we also add opportunities,
Okay, where?
Yeah.
preserve and
After
improve
recreation.
recreation opportunities.
Because we don't really want to preserve the, my water skiing experience. We're talking about other things that,
Jason,
The opportunity to sail.
you can finish up for it.
Preserve and improve, I just want to finish with 4. Preserve and improve recreation opportunities on existing waterways. Okay, yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
5? Like, we're
Yes.
majority, okay. Okay. All right, now number 2.
I just want to do a quick time check
Yes.
because the library does close at 9, and I think it'd be best if we were out of here by about 10 to
10 of yes.
maybe
Okay.
15. So
All right, so, number 2.
So number 2, so improve access connectivity to existing and future sites. Get rid of the EG. I think that's okay as it stands. I don't know if anybody has any other comments about that.
I agree.
Gail, you had comments about it.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch what he said, could you?
He said, he said just improve and access,
Okay,
improve access and connectivity to existing and future sites.
as long as that's implied that it's handicap accessible or ADA
Yeah.
accessible as well. Is improving access cover all that?
I think so. It's not every project, not every trail could be ADA accessible. But when it's possible, I would think the projects would strive for that.
I
Yeah,
think that can be in the context of the project itself,
Yeah.
requested.
Okay.
To ask that in terms of weighing in whether to fund this project or not. I mean, in terms of you have many projects in this space, just grammatically access, is access equivalent to accessibility? Is that, would you see that as being one and the same?
Sure. Yes.
So,
May I offer a suggestion in that I presume there will be an introduction to the goals, and this is where we could spell out, because I think it is important to call out.
Well, especially
ADA
when there has been,
accessibility.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we could say by access, we mean also including ADA compliance.
When appropriate or
When
something,
appropriate,
yeah.
or
Or
when
whenever-
possible,
When possible.
whenever
Yeah,
possible.
not appropriate, when
Yeah.
possible.
It's always appropriate.
Yeah, right.
All right, so would you like to see that weaved into this, in here, at this
Into the
goal
goal.
level, or no?
Not necessarily, if there's some explanation someplace that covers the explanation.
I mean, it's
Access is
across the
access.
board. I mean, that's across the board, whether we're talking about open space, recreation, historic preservation, and we could be historic building, making ramps, right? You know, like I think that's everywhere.
I just wanna make sure that people's, requests are covered someplace appropriately.
So I can tell you,
So
regardless
I
of
think
what
probably-
CPA monies are used or what we decide as a council, ADA is something that Parks and Cemetery is striving for, right? So ADA accessibility is something that's on our radar screen. Let's put it that way. So it is mentioned more than once in the commentary from the different factions that we talked to. So I think what Martha had said is probably the right way to catch it, is to say accessibility to us means, and then go, start with ADA, then talk about.
Agree.
The library is soon closing. Please bring any items you may have to the self-checkout units on the main floor.
I'm fine.
You good?
The
I'm
children's room
All
is
right.
closed for checkouts.
All
The
right.
desk to obtain a new library
So
card
it's
is
ending with
closed.
improve access and connectivity
If
to
you are
existing
working
and
on
future
public
sites.
computers,
End.
please be sure to save
All right, that
your
concludes
password.
recreation, affordable housing. So we don't have Kathy with us, but these are the goals that she put out there. And
can we do the second goal?
let's go with 1 through number 1 here. So she wrote, the first one here is more affordable housing specifically for the elderly and disabled, as well as young adults 25 to 35. So, yeah, I mean, I suggested to combine them and to provide us the specific groups. I have seen goals in other towns, including Watertown, which called out examples like this. But I think we have to just take the suggested edits, but not decide on it without Kathy, because Kathy is integral to this part. So if you have a request to change that here, let's just make note of it. We're not taking a decision on it. Does anybody have a viewpoint on number 1?
I would, just a little bit of wordsmithing is all.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
So that's one of the point I liked is affordable home ownership. Is that also encompasses in that point? Home ownership, like affordable home ownership.
For more affordable home ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
House, there's one part is housing and there's another part is.
so housing will be the general term,
Mhm.
because it will cover homes and
Rentals.
and sorry.
Is it rentals? The second part is rent.
Yeah, I mean, it could be rentals, right? It could be any sort of like general assistance for housing, as we see it. Yep. And it's group homing as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity. Okay. Not hearing anything for number 1. I know that it checks the box on a couple of items that were brought up for affordable housing. All right, how about number 2 on affordable housing? It's provide grants, loans, rental assistance, security deposits, interest rate write-downs, or other forms of assistance to families that are eligible for community housing. That is pretty as broad as it gets.
And that's almost exactly what's in the statute, but should it be families or individuals? Because right now it just says families.
That was one of Kristen Lass's comments actually as well. So
Because individuals are, in the city of Worcester in particular, there's people with vouchers for affordable housing, but it's an individual and there's nowhere for them to go.
Okay, it'll be proposed. Anybody else?
So Jason,
Yes.
so goal one is more physical, whereas goal 2 is more process, right? Am I reading that right?
Affordable housing. Yes, so the housing and yeah, you're right. Because now I'm just kind of clawing back my conversation with this. Number 1 is more about the homes.
If you wanted consistency with the other goals using the CPC verbs, that goal could simply be support programs that provide
There you
grants,
go.
loans, which is actually almost verbatim what's in this piece. But that way
I like
you're
that.
using the verbs that you want it to be consistent with.
Support programs to provide
And then
Okay.
the first one could be create more affordable housing.
Create more affordable housing. Okay, and that's really about the spice. Okay, yeah, cool. Number 3, meet the 10% SHI. I just got lost in this connection. Statutory requirement of affordable housing.
So maybe that's support projects that help Shrewsbury move closer to meeting the 10% statutory requirement.
The support though is
Support
Yeah.
projects.
to get the SHI statutory requirement, we would have to get to, sorry, I know you guys just dropped off for a second there. We were at the last one, which is meet the 10% SHI, statutory requirement of affordable housing. And so to get that, it's really number 1, except it's meeting a goal of creating that much inventory.
Just trying to think how to use your verbs, which one for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is in the create or acquire position.
Is it even an attainable goal?
Does anybody have something to propose here to revise this further or to put something in instead? I would like to at least have 3. Yeah. So I don't want to go to number 2. if there's no opinions, we can certainly move on from that one.
Did someone just say, I'm not sure if I just heard it, I'm not sure if Martha just said it or somebody just said it. Does that pigeonhole us to say that we have to do this then? When it says meet the 10% SHI statutory requirement, does that now put the onus on us to make sure that that happens?
No,
No.
not in any way, I would say.
Okay,
That's a townwide and state
Yeah,
statute.
It's state statute that many communities don't meet, so the onus wouldn't be on us if communities across the Commonwealth aren't reaching it. But it's a good goal.
I mean,
could it be use the word strive? Strive to meet?
sure.
Yeah, strive to meet, yeah. That's what I think.
I think it's okay not to use the CPC verb on that one.
Strive to meet,
Mhm.
okay. Strive
I
to,
would also spell out SHI.
Yes.
Subsidized
Those
Yeah.
aren't-
okay, spell out.
Initiative.
Inventory.
Inventory,
Okay, strive to meet the 10% and then it's spelled out. Okay, we need to go in the lightning round. Okay, so affordable housing, we're not moving forward with that. These proposed edits will be submitted to Kathy for her review and concurrence, and then we can take that up. I think she should make the edit as she sees best, and we'll just deliberate on it in our next meeting as part of the full package. Is that okay?
And I can communicate that to her.
Thank you. Okay, cool. Right. I got too many papers.
Number 6.
Thank you very much. Okay, so number 6, updating CP funding process and applications. Well, I will just comment. We are about to be kicked out of the library. So in terms of the process, it has been a little tough to get a comment time. I appreciate each of us have brought information to the table in terms of the documentation as a proposal. Melanie and I did meet yesterday briefly to review, to comment on about some direction on that. I'll just say that in the conversation, I am proposing that we no longer break out a hard line of $5,000 versus either below it or above it. And I think what weighs in my mind is hearing Stuart's comments from the Community Preservation Coalition against doing so. And at the same time, there's also there's due diligence, whether it's $1,000 or $1 million, right? So I think the 5,000. I think while the intention of it was to see if there's a way to make small moneyed projects less onerous for a requester, I think the more we kind of see, looking at your form, looking at what's going to be needed when you get to the application side, I think I would rather us be nimble about it and not say $5,000 you're taking a short form, but then we feel like, yeah, well, actually, that's what you're doing with that $4,000 is actually you need to get more check more boxes, right? So I would rather get to the point where we keep it just one. Everyone goes to the same, and we have the ability to. And this is the second point in the conversation, which is I noticed like that Watertown had a lot of these check boxes to say, did you do these other documents as part of their completion review and the full application side of it? But I'm thinking if we bring that up forward to the eligibility side and say, don't fill this out, we were going to suggest to you, hey, given what we heard in eligibility, I think the following are applicable. And so that kind of says, all right, to move forward for the full, like you're not available right now, but in the full process, make sure you have these things done, because that's what we're going to be looking for. As opposed to wait till the full application and say, let you fill it out. Maybe you didn't really need to fill that out, but you felt like you needed to, you know what I mean? Sort of like helping up front to say what we're looking to expect and only ask you what we really need, as opposed to saying, you interpret what you want, whether you need to fill this thing out. And so I think, having more upfront eligibility. The other thing that came to my mind about that was, in a timeline perspective, the earlier somebody's in the queue, right, in a July and August timeframe, there's more time for us to discuss with them and to say, hey, this is the direction you should go. But as you go closer to the, butting up into timelines, they may run out of that timeline. We may not have an opportunity to say what we want you to do, right? Especially if we say, oh, you need to go before a full Parks and Cemetery Commission to get feedback, right? Because it may not just be good enough for Jim to comment on it. Maybe it's the full body needs to comment on it. Maybe it's that and Conservation Commission, and that's a long time frame to try to get in that meeting. So I would rather be upfront, hear about the eligibility, what you're trying to do, and say, yeah, this thing needs to go to these boards because of what you're asking to do. So that, it's irrelevant of the pricing. It really is about what you're asking for. And that was my
As
opinion.
the process is currently written, it does say that after the preliminary application, which certainly could have more to it, it will be returned, the answer, move forward or next time, will come with comment. So that might not have to be a checkbox, but that's part of the comment. That would like you to go forward with the full application. Please be certain that you do, the things that you think are relevant. I mean, even someone that we don't invite to move forward, I think deserves comment of, we're not gonna ask you to move forward this time because that's not an allowable use of CPC funds, or that doesn't fit, or something. We'll give them comment, positive, constructive either way.
So on the first point about the 5,000 delineation and removing that,
Revise the forms.
do you agree, disagree? Anybody else want to weigh in on that? We had proposed originally to have a delineation again.
And I think regardless of the size, there should be some consistency in what we're asking of people. Whether we're giving somebody $200 or $20,000, we want to be sure they're using it correctly and appropriately, and so they shouldn't give a slide just because they're little.
Right. I see you guys back. Is there just a closing question? Are you either one of you want to comment on the $5,000 limit, removing that from consideration? Certainly a project size will be a project size, whatever it is, right? But it's leaving it up to us to be nimble about that. If certainly down the line we see that there's, hey, we can make it faster for X size or X scope, we can do that, but I would rather just pull that back now for the first year. All right, Melanie and Jim are shaking their head in affirmation. Thank you very much. Okay, last call. So removed. Okay, thank you very much. And I think we will end it there. So, yes, we already discussed number 7, which was the terms, the next steps are terms. We covered that in part of the timeline. Any questions, comments that you'd like to get out now before we close the meeting?
Melanie, don't know if that raised hand.
Melanie, do you have a raised hand for closing up? No? Oh, no. Okay. Jim?
Good.
Okay. All right. Take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded. Okay. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Call?
Jeez, roll call. I'm getting tired. I'm sorry.
I just gonna let it slide.
All right. Almost out of there. Blame Melanie. I mean Martha. All right. Martha?
Aye.
Okay. Gail?
Aye.
Rajesh?
Aye.
Melanie?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.
All done. Thank you very much.